I think we are recording
Excellent.
now. Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
So we'll go over why self-awareness is important and what strategic self-awareness, but then we'll explore a few barriers to what makes self-awareness and change difficult. And it's really important to understand that because even if we're really passionate about self-awareness and wanting people to improve, if we don't address the barriers to change, and more importantly, the psychological barriers of change, we will go nowhere. And then I will present two case studies in how we've been able to effectively develop strategic self-awareness. One case study focused on hypo employees and another one on teams. And toward the end, we will have a little bit of time for a Q&A. So write down your questions as we go through the slides, and I'll be happy to answer your questions at the end of today's presentations. So why is self-awareness important? On a very global level, the talent landscape has been changing quite a lot recently and more frequently as well. We see we see AI and the digital economy disrupting how the talent landscape and creating new jobs, replacing more traditional ones. And it is estimated that 25% of jobs will dramatically change in the next 5 years. And this change creates a significant need and pressure on organization like yours. They need to adapt, and they also need to make sure that their people are being upskilled to evolve. Otherwise, that will lead to their business stagnating. And one thing that you can do in response to those changes is to be more aware, take a step back, and clearly identify what are your strategic needs for developing your talent. What are the gaps? Where are we currently? And where do we need to be? And how can we close those gaps? And this requires a strong capacity for self-awareness, not only for yourself as a professional or a leader, but also as an HR leader. It kind of requires an organizational self-awareness, which is really the central element of successful talent development and adapting to all of those changes. But why? What are some other reasons on why self-awareness is important? Well, it makes us make better decisions. It kind of makes us stop and observe and ask ourselves the question, is this really what I want to be doing? Like this little dog who's really, really wanting to jump on the table and eat that delicious pie. It's not necessarily aligned with your goals. So being self-aware enables you to make better decisions that are based on your strength, your challenges, or also even recognizing some of the bias that you might have so you can make more informed choices and decisions. Another reason why self-awareness is important is because it gives us more emotional intelligence, which will directly impact the quality and the strength of our relationship. So recognizing your emotion, how you react to certain things, but also how your reaction and your behaviors affect others helps you navigate social interaction with more empathy and effectiveness. If you're a leader, being able to self-regulate is super important because emotions are contagious. And so your team will easily feel the same emotions as you're feeling. And that's just the reality of all of us being humans. Um, People who are self-aware are also uh, are also more likely to foster trust and open communication in personal and professional relationships, which really helps create psychological safety. So here again, if you're a leader, self-awareness is extremely important. Another reason why self-awareness is important is because it gives you the ability to be more resilient. Understanding your triggers and what coping mechanism or strategies are effective for you helps you manage stress and the demands and the setbacks more effectively. So being able to understand, for example, where you're struggling. Is it when you need to initiate a project or when you need to sustain a project when you're encountering obstacles? So kind of being able to fine tune what will trigger your stress and what will trigger you kind of falling behind your goals is really is something that self-awareness can help you. Personal growth is another element or another benefit of having self-awareness. Knowing where you need improvement helps you continuously develop and evolve and adapt to the changing environment and situations that you're in. And last but not least, improve leadership. So I've already mentioned it a little bit before, but all of these pieces comes together into a puzzle, and and they enable you to improve your leadership and your personal impact and the influence that you can have within your team, but also within your organization at large. And what I really like about self-awareness, if I had to summarize it, is it really gives us the power to influence the outcomes. So it kind of brings back control into our hands because we can rarely control the situations, but something that we can do is control our reaction to what happens to us. Another angle to look at the importance of self-awareness is by contrasting talent who know themselves and who are quite self-aware with talent who lack self-awareness. So talent who know themselves usually will seek a lot of feedback proactively and in multiple forms. They will also accept the feedback that they receive because they understand that others know things that you don't know, things that are important. If you're familiar with the concept of Joe Harry's window, they recognize that there's a part of there's a part of oneself that a person can never really be in touch with or can never really capture or be aware of without the help of others. And because they accept that feedback, they act on the feedback and other people notices the change. And this really helps them create more and more engaging culture. And this really helps them accomplish their goal and make the world a better place to work, especially, surrounding them. On the contrary, talent who lacks self-awareness won't listen or will dismiss feedback messages. So they won't. Not only will they not seek feedback when they are being given feedback, they will ignore it, and they're ignoring it because they're unable to admit faults or flaws. Basically, they don't really see the point of changing their behaviors. And so it will take a lot of feedback and a lot of time before they try new behaviors. Another thing that they might do is when they do try to change, under stress, they will resort to their old behavioral patterns. And because they're unable to change the critical behaviors, they can top out or fail, which can have a disastrous impact on their careers, but also on other people's lives around them. So how do we move from there to something a bit more specific? And I'd like today to introduce the concept of strategic self-awareness. So at Hogan, self-awareness is not enough for us. What we really believe and what we've seen been more effective is strategic self-awareness. There are three components to strategic self-awareness. The first one is understanding one's strength and limitation. What are you great at, and what might be a bit more challenging? The second component is understanding how those strengths and limitations compare with those of others. And the last one is understanding the need to adapt behavior to increase your effectiveness. So that's the third part. Usually when we talk about self-awareness, we talk about the first two components, understanding your strength and limitation and how they compare. And it really becomes strategic when you understand which behavior you need to change or you need to kind of fine-tune in order to increase your effectiveness. You don't have to target everything, only what really matters to your effectiveness. Many people believe that self-awareness is easy to kind of have, they believe that it's easy to know yourself. You just have to ask yourself a lot of questions, but it's a lot more complicated than that. And I really like those two statistics that show that show how difficult self-awareness is. So I don't know how among all of us attending today, but do you believe that your driving skills are better or worse than the average driver? Well, if you think that you drive better than most people, that's also what most people think. 80% of people think that they are better driver than the average driver, which is mathematically impossible. Another shocking statistic about self-awareness is that 42% of tech employees think that they are amongst the top 5% of their own of the company that they work in. And the reason why people struggle in really being able to assess themselves is because oftentimes they will compare themselves with a certain group, right? So they will compare themselves with people who they interact more often with. So if we take, for example, our little friend here, let's call him People. People, when he compares himself with his colleagues on the scale of flexible and spontaneous to orderly and organized, he's quite orderly and organized. But if we have People, which is I took this name because it's my favorite character in the Moomins, which is Snufkin actually in English. But if we ask People to complete a Hogan assessment, and we actually compare his scores with the general working population, we realized that he might not be as orderly and organized as what he had thought. If if we compare it with the group of people that he hang out with most often, yes, he is the most flexible, orderly, and organized of them. But compared to the general working population, that he might fall more into the flexible and spontaneous type of person. And that's really how personality is related to self-awareness. So personality gives us a universal framework for understanding the ways in which we are all alike. So humans, no matter where we are in the world, we're all trying to get along, all trying to get ahead, and all trying to find meaning. However, personality informs us on the different ways, the different and unique ways of how how we go about in getting along, getting ahead, and finding meaning. And a leader's personality really will determine how they lead and or how they will help the group or the team get along, get ahead, and find meaning. And so knowing more about your personality, how you are similar to others, but also how you differ from others, is really key to nurturing strategic self-awareness. So I know that some of you are quite familiar with Hogan, but we also have some people attending today who are not that familiar. And Hogan is quite unique in measuring personality from a reputational perspective or a reputational standpoint. What we mean by that is that we study how people might be perceived by others rather than what they think about themselves. So your identity is what you think about yourself. We don't think that's really important because at the end of the day, what really has an impact on your career and on your effectiveness as a leader is what people think of you. We would love if that wasn't the case, but we're pragmatic, and that's really how things are. So we help people gain strategic self-awareness by understanding their personality from a reputational perspective. And we do so by assessing, having a super comprehensive assessment of someone's personality. So our three core assessments are the HPI, the dark side, and the HPI, the HDS, and the MVPI. And together they measure what we call the bright side, the dark side, and the inside of personality. So the bright side is who you are on a day-to-day basis, when you're feeling well, when you're self-monitoring, when you're at your best. Oftentimes, you will see a lot of bright side personality the first 6 months on the job. Then we also capture what we call the dark side, which isn't so much, it isn't too dark, but it's more like the shadow part of your personality. It's what will kind of emerge under stress or when you become complacent. And if you do have some derailers that we call, and most of us have a few ones, understanding what overuse strength or derailers could get in your way and could be a high risk is really important when it comes to building your self-awareness and being more effective. And last but not least, we also measure the inside of personality, which really relates to your values and goals and what drives you. But it's also, as a leader, what type of culture that you're likely to create. What sort of things you reward, and what are some other things that you might ignore or punish. So once you understand all of that, well, you can start acting on the feedback provided by others or provided by your personality assessments. And we like to keep it simple and use this framework whenever we do coaching. So we like to identify what you should keep doing, what you should stop doing, and what you should start doing. And one example I can give you is I've received before feedback that I can be quite talkative and sometimes, to a point where I will be interrupting other people. So when I received my feedback, that was quite insightful for me as um, basically, I don't want to throw everything into the rubbish bin or the trash. I want to keep my high sociability and keep kind of my social engagement because that helps me relate to clients and be really enthusiastic and not be afraid to, do a webinar for Absolute Talent Solutions today. However, I do have to be aware of managing my time and interrupting others while they are working. My colleague Nicole is with us today, and today I told her at one point, I was like, okay, thank you so much. I will stop distracting you now, but I'm really happy that you could help me. So that's something I need to actively monitor. And something I have to start doing is to listen more and share kind of the spotlight with others, which today I will be doing a little bit later when JJ takes over after the questions. So receiving that feedback is quite important, and understanding, in your strength and in your challenges, what you really need to pinpoint to be more effective is crucial. Let's move on to understanding some of the barriers of self-awareness and change. I'm a trained psychologist, so I'm high on sociability, so I can talk about that for a long time, but I will try to be as concise as possible. One of the biggest barrier to self-awareness and change is ego. Increasing self-awareness can be quite painful, difficult, and emotional. That's normal. That's what our brain does. It tries to keep negative information out, especially when it comes to ourselves. And so because of that, we might have some biases, we might have some distortions in memory, we might have some self-protection mechanism going on, but it's really important to put aside your ego, take care of it for sure, but it's quite important to put your ego aside if you want to develop self-awareness. And whenever you receive feedback, the mindset that you have to receive feedback is like receiving a gift. People are not they are not obligated. They don't have to give you feedback. But if they're giving you feedback, oftentimes it's because they care about you. So that's something that's quite important in keeping in mind. People are trying to help you. They're not trying to diminish what you're doing. Another barrier is ambivalence. People both want to change, but they also don't want to change at the same time. And that can be caused by fear of the unknown, the possibility of failing, or the fear of loss aversion is quite high, and people are afraid of losing what they might have, and sometimes people are afraid of trying new things as well. And so even the most motivated people, that want to change, they will experience ambivalence, and that might lead them to quit, or that might lead them, if they're able to manage that and recognize that it's normal to feel contradictive emotion, then they can continue in trying to change. The third barrier that I will highlight today is energy. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of focus, a lot of effort uh, in order to make a change. And you have to really approach change as a lifestyle change and not a cure. Or we like to talk about the concept of Kaizen a lot at Hogan, which is making small steps in a sustained way that over time will have a big impact. Even though on the short term it might not feel like it's a big impact, being consistent and trying slowly new things and fine-tuning things will lead to change eventually. Another thing is people are tired, right? We are overworked, we are burnt out, there's so much to do. And so that leads to a lot of fatigue, stress. We feel the pressure. And oftentimes that means that our dark side behaviors will more likely emerge in those times. So not only do we have to demonstrate a lot of energy, but we also have to manage our dark side when trying to change. The last barrier that we will go over together is the fragility and durability of reputation. As you might have noticed in your own experience, it takes many good acts to be deemed good, and it only takes one bad act to be deemed bad. And especially when it comes to the derailers, everyone has kind of a relationship bank account with each person that they interact with. And sometimes if we demonstrate some behaviors, or if we go back to our old patterns, that will have kind of the effect of a big withdrawal into the relationship bank account. And so it takes a lot of small behaviors and sometimes big behaviors for people to really perceive change, and we really have to be consistent. Otherwise, people generally won't trust a few new behaviors as proof that someone has really changed, or they're really trying to make an effort. And at the end of the day, how we measure change at Hogan is if other people notice the change. So it's not, again, here, it's from a reputational perspective. It's not if you think that you have change. We don't really care about that. What we focus on is if others have perceived that change. So knowing those barriers, knowing everything that we've discussed earlier, how can you help your talent develop strategic self-awareness to facilitate change? First of all, we recommend setting a foundation using data. So that means using valid and reliable personality or 360 assessment to provide the individual with an accurate representation of their current reputation. Then create individual development plans. We don't want anything that is one size fits all. We want something that's very personalized, and we want people to set small, achievable goals. So it builds their confidence into trying new things, and slowly over time, it will create a lasting, impactful change. It's really important to offer support and ask people to be accountable. Don't fear of holding people accountable for their goals. Um, if they set these goals at one point in time, it's because it was important for them. Um, so it's important to hold people accountable, but we also want them to have the support that they need. So helping them find a mentor, or providing them with a coach who can help them work with, the different things that they need to develop, and provide them with a few strategies when they get stuck is super important, because kind of hoping that everything will be fine, and that one individual will be able to change just by themselves is really unrealistic as an expectation. And the last thing that you can do to help your talent develop strategic self-awareness is to commit to Kaizen development. So don't think of talent development or coaching as a single one and done type of program. Continuous development and maintenance is needed to result in real change. So now let's move on some tangible client success stories. I really love those two stories. I haven't done them myself, but these were done by some of my colleagues, and so I'm really happy to share with you what we've been able to do with some clients across the globe. The first one um, is about a global IT company who was headquartered in the US. And they sought our help to identify and develop high potential talent. But they had a special request for us, which was they wanted the program to be tailored to retain high potential talent. And that's because they had a big problem of turnover. So their baseline turnover rate of employees in general was 32%, which is quite high, given like the industry that they were in and the state of things. So their ultimate goal was to develop people for leadership role with succession planning in mind. And so what we did is we did a really cool research project with them. And we researched the most important personality characteristic for successful leaders within the organization, but also to identify who was more or less likely to leave. And so using past performance data and past retention data, we were able to identify ambition, sociability, and prudence as key personal characteristic to look for in identifying top performing high potentials. So ambition is about, being confident, being willing to accept challenges and act decisively when you're not knowing everything. Sociability, communicating proactively was one key behaviors that was super important, which is captured by sociability. And I put a little asterisk on prudence because actually we found that if people were too high on prudence, that was actually going against their performance. It was actually hindering people's performance. So we needed scores more in the low and moderate range on that scale, which would help people be more tolerant of ambiguity. And on the other side, we found out, using the retention data and the turnover data, that leaders who were high on cautious and high on dutiful, so those who were more slow in making decision and more reluctant to take individual action, traditionally they were more likely to leave the organization. So having those insights, in some ways we created organizational self-awareness at that level because we were able to identify strength, but also gaps, or what to look for, what sort of risk we should look for. And so we use those insights in coaching sessions. So we identified the participants who were most likely to be top performing, but also who would be more likely to stay. And we offered individual coaching sessions. And we did so using the Leadership Forecast series solutions. So we had some individual coaching sessions. We had also the insights in mind that the research had given us. And once we debriefed once we debriefed participants, then the Hogan coaches started to work with individuals to create the personalized development plan using the keep, stop, start framework in identifying which behaviors they should focus on. And so as part of those reports, they were provided a development worksheet and basically a development plan. And so they created small achievable goals, so SMART goals, for the 3 months, 6 months, and 1 year mark. And what I really liked about this client project is that the supervisors of high potentials actually volunteer to mentor the high potential, which can be super meaningful for individuals taking part in a hypo program. And it worked. So one thing that we also encourage organizations to do is to measure the impact of change. So in this case, if we go back to the original request, it was basically what they wanted to do is to retain the high potential. And so they moved from, something about 30% something turnover to only 3% turnover, being able to retain 97% of the hypos that they had developed. So quite a great success stories. JJ, do we have time for another case study, or should we move on to Q&A?
I think we can quickly go through the second case study because I think it's really useful for people especially for application and apply Hogan to the and then we leave a little bit at the end for Q&A. Yes.
Excellent.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So here's another way of how we've developed self-awareness, this time at a team level. So this case study or this client project was done with a successful global pharma manufacturer. And what they wanted to do is to really scale up their talent to meet the needs of the future. And basically, they were having trouble kind of being more innovative. So they had a super high performing kind of manufacturing team and who were great managers, and they would fulfill orders and they would be super efficient. But the organizations really wanted them to move from kind of a manager hat to a leader hat that would lead innovation and change. So they sought Hogan's help to hold a team development program based on personality to support the development of this team. First thing that we did is we got stakeholder buy-in. So whenever you do work with a team, don't just stay with the team, take some time with the leader of the team or with the stakeholders of the team to really align on what's their expectation and what's the issue in front of us. And so we did that. We did an interview with the management team leader and also the program manager. And, both parties share their ideas and their goals. And what was great is they fully committed to participate also in the plan session and to be involved in the follow-up activities that would result from the team intervention. So we had everyone complete the personality assessment, and each member of the management team received a coaching debrief. Again, here using the Leadership Forecast series because they're full of advice on performance implication of your personality and such. Once everyone had, some sort of individual awareness, we did a team session with them, which I know JJ is fabulous in facilitating. But we did a team session using the group report so they could see not only how do they score as a team, but we actually benchmarked them against the executives in the pharma industry. So they could not only compare, their scores within themselves, but also with external competition in some way. And so that, as part of the team session, we explored the team reputation. And toward the end of the session, each individual committed to small achievement and development plan. And so again, here we use the stop, keep, start methods to build a strategic self-awareness. So after that, 6 months later, we did a follow-up with them and to evaluate how it was going in terms of the individual, but also the team development plan and what support they needed in addition to what they were already receiving. So what basically everything was going well. The stakeholders, including the leader and the HR team, were so happy with the team's progress. For them, it was very insightful to understand, oh yeah, okay, we're very focused, we're very process driven, we're very order fulfilling focus, and we're less comfortable with kind of innovating and trying new things. We can be quite cautious. And so they committed to continually check in on the team and also not being afraid to ask for the support that they need to achieve their development efforts. So to conclude, self-awareness drives better outcome. Because it helps us understand who we are, what are our strengths, and what challenges we might encounter. and understanding the challenges in trying new things or new behaviors is really important. So self-awareness is super important, but so is addressing the obstacles to change. I've already mentioned all of those points, but using data-driven insights really helps you enhance talent development and self-awareness, and also helps you build individual plans and personalized plans in order to improve effectiveness. And always remember, focus on Kaizen. You won't achieve something completely different in one day. It takes a lot of time in trying new things. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. You can write Thai too. Impressive,
Well,
Nicole.
that's my only Thai I can say. ขอบคุณค่ะ
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you, especially the case study. And that at the end, it actually makes us understand more in terms of practicality of how to apply and use Hogan in particularly talent development. From both cases that you share, we can see that we can use on individual level as well as the team levels. So of course, we started from the individual. Everyone needs to take the assessment. Particularly in these two examples, we use the package called Leadership Focus Series, which is actually gives you the insight in bright side, dark side, and insight, which is a full
Mhm.
element of personality based on Hogan research. Okay, so I would say before I sort of wrap up and touch at the very end again, let's everyone, if you have any questions at all regarding the case or outside the case or whatever you already have in mind, please feel free to type in the Q&A. We actually got a couple questions here already, Anne-Marie. So if you can see the in the Q&A,
Yes.
it's actually from Hamad. Um, First one, he asks, how can we evaluate whether our feedback system is fostering authentic input and being used effectively for organizational development?
That's a really good question. And look, I think using a dual approach or a hybrid approach is probably the most effective in fostering authentic input, or authentic data points in developing
Mm,
self-awareness. And what I mean by
mm,
that is I like to use a combination of personality and some sort of 360 feedback, because if you use just the 360, we do know that 360s, people are honest, but not 100% honest. It's normal. They can be a bit political, but they will really help you kind of narrow down what you should be focusing on in terms of the stakeholders that are around you. So sending the 360 to your most critical stakeholders will kind of, it will start to give you some feedback.
mm.
But just doing that is not enough, because people won't tell you everything in the 360, or
No, no.
so having personality data from a reputational perspective will give you kind of your general reputation, not your reputation at a certain point in a time by those people. And so crossing those two type of data, I find it's quite effective in narrowing down what you should be prioritizing in your development. So
Yes, yeah, excellent. Yeah, thank you. So basically, in a nutshell, um, each tool there's I usually explain to the client that there's pro and con in each tool.
Yes.
and including personality, not just Hogan, but any kind of personality, as well as 360 as well.
Yeah.
So use a combination of tools to basically drive to authentic result. Okay, thank you. And that crossed to the second questions like, okay, how can we not, to ensure that feedback doesn't become label?
Yeah.
Um,
Um, that's a tough
Instead, yeah.
question. Yeah, it's a tough question. And the best thing we can do is to take a bit more time and to validate the person who's receiving the feedback, whether it's the hiring manager or the HR team. What did they understand, and not be afraid to correct them. So if what I mean by that is, if you go too quick and you yourself use label or use kind of categorize people into things, start saying that this is bad, this is good. There's no good or bad. There are
Mm,
strengths and challenges in every personality characteristic. So kind of bringing in that attitude will help. I don't think it's possible to ensure, but I think it's possible to improve that personality assessment results are not just a label. The other thing I would add is personality is not faith, right? It's one part. It's a big factor in what type of behaviors that you will be emitting, but self-awareness plays, the environment in which you are in plays as well.
yes. Thank you. And another point, especially for Hogan, is I always address to client is people who provide the feedback. We strongly, strongly, strongly recommend them to be certified because
Mm-hmm.
in that way they can understand the Hogan languages and also, understand in depth of the reports and also our vocabularies as well. Because from one word that can explain many things, especially for example, just ambition. It's not just ambition, it's more than just ambition in Hogan language, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that can be another thing. And from Kun Kalayakon is actually, I hope she still stay. I know that we run over time a little bit. She asked, like, how can you tell us more about how to create a success profile from case one? Did you
Yeah.
derive it from the client's leadership competency or what else? Yeah.
So we can do that. We can do that. But for case number one, what we did is we actually use past performance data and past retention data. So it was a full custom study. So we had people complete Hogan assessments, and we did some correlations to identify what were the key personality characteristics that were predictive of success, job performance, but also who would stay versus who would leave.
Yes, also thank you. And also for my past experience, Kun Kalayakon ka, other approach that can be you can do a success profile from research as well.
Yes.
Find the data, new research data from both focus group and interview, as well as you let them complete the Hogan to understand the Hogan profile. And one of the project I did is, which is similar to your approach, is, people who have tendency to stay and people who have tendency to leave.
Yeah.
So we could do both, like what could go right and what could go not so right. Like, yeah, people who stay and people who, yeah, tend to, yeah. And also not only that, but once we know that, we also work backward as well, not
Mm.
only just a current employee. However, we apply that backward into talent acquisition strategy too, use based on those data. I hope that answered the question. ค่ะ I hope Kun Kalayakon still here? Yes, she is.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
ค่ะค่ะ is that um we can actually also discuss after this as well คุณกัลยากร if in case that you have more questions about especially the success profile ค่ะ
Yeah, yes,
But
please. Thank you.
some, if if you don't have the data to do the research, a good first step is to map to the leadership competency framework. Yes.
Oh yes, 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 and that's what we do most of the time anyhow in
Yes.
most of the customized project that we do the competency mapping using Hogan research, and Hogan also provide competency as well, about 64 competency that Hogan has, and also well researched already, even as well as leadership model too.
Mhm.
So high potential model, leadership model, competency, and it's all been well researched for over 40 years. Yeah.
All
Yes.
right, thank you very much.
Well,
We
it
can discuss backstage later.
ค่ะ
ขอบ
Yes,
คุณค่ะ
definitely. Definitely. Yes, ค่ะ. And we actually have another question by Hamad. Sorry, I sort of jumped the sequence a bit. Basically, to help you read quickly and summarize this, they use both assessment, configure and HBRI. Somehow
Mhm.
the result sort of contradict. So how they can interpret that? Yeah, let me read it quickly. Yes, yeah, inconsistent with the score, not the result of the report, but also the result and observation during the interview, the inconsistent with behavior observed during the interview. Yes. For example, low score in verbal communication in the report, but the candidates appear to be highly communicate able to, like high communication skills. Yeah.
Mm. Well, many obviously I don't have all of the information about that situation, but some things that can happen is, we the interviewers, sometimes we have our own biases, and so that can play into how we evaluate different candidates. So that can be one thing, one potential explanation. Another potential explanation is that the the in an interview is quite, it's a limited time, it's
Yeah.
a limited moment, right?
Yes.
And what the personality results will provide you is more about, on the longer term. So what personality is the general patterns of behaviors across different situation and
Different
across
city. Yeah.
time.
Yes.
Yes. So it is possible to, and if this person is highly aware of their own personality, maybe they were self-monitoring, maybe they applied strategic self-awareness and they knew that they had to be more talkative. So during the interview, they really made an effort on that. But still, it's insightful and interesting to have the personality results in combination in what you observe during the interview process. So
Yes.
so
Yes.
you can
Agree.
better, you could use those personality results. Let's say you want to go forward with this candidate. It's really best practice to use the personality results and provide a debrief as part of the onboarding to, when they start feeling a bit more comfortable or when they're under a lot of stress, maybe they will resort to, their more natural patterns. So being having that self-awareness, or they might even tell you, yes, I know that's how I feel, and it's so exhausting for me to go against that natural tendency. So look, many factors can explain those things.
Yes. And also let me add on top in case people who still stay with us, thank you so much who still stay with
Yeah.
us. And basically just in case of people who new to Hogan, Hogan Configure is a competency I call dashboard.
Mhm.
Basically, you can use Hogan data. You did the same assessment as Hogan questionnaires and assessment, bright side, dark side, and insight. You answer those in configure is actually use bright side and dark side. Yes. And in those in configure, you answer the questionnaires and then you can actually, as a consultant or HR, you can choose 8 competencies. And then the result will be displayed in the competency score, not the Hogan assessment profile. Okay. So in this case, there's the two answer to that, Hamad. As an ex-recruiter, as an ex-executive search in recruitment, I find that many candidates these days, especially people who have a high ambition, high sociability, and let's say moderate interpersonal sensitivity, they really know how to communicate. And especially people who are colorful, on top of that, they really know how to present themselves well, especially in those situations that they want to design their behavior. I'm not saying that they're fake, they're genuine, but they know how to perform. That can be one thing. And also younger generations with this training with YouTube channel that they see on train on how to be the good interviewee, etc. They're well trained in communication during the interview sessions compared to, let's say, what I did like 15 years ago in recruitment. So that's one thing. Presentable, they're more presentable. Second thing is, on top of this, what I would do usually is I will, if you really want to go for that candidate, on top of what Anne Marie said, I would let them do the full Hogan personality profile. It could be inside. See, we have over 25 reports, altogether in Hogan um, inventory. You can choose to see Hogan personality profile to see the bright side, dark side, inside scale to understand them and use that as a coaching. Common mistake, I'm not saying that what you did, Hamad, I'm not saying that, I'm talking about in general in terms of using Hogan and the interview is many times I find that the client end up using Hogan after the interview. So they interview, they did like all the interview round already, first round, second round, and they just, you know what, want to confirm. So they use a Hogan after that. However, we find that you actually Hogan is a really powerful data, and what tells you and how you can interpret that, you can actually use those insight in the interview sessions to probe what you want to know more, to probe what you're unsure, and to confirm some understanding from the candidate. Yes, I hope that answer the questions. But as again, I will stay behind. So how much you can also stay if you have time. So I help you clarify that as well. Well, I believe I take over 11 minutes more of the time. Well, if any other questions, please feel free to stay. I will stick around for a little bit. Otherwise, I would like to take this opportunity to wrap up by thank you, Anne Marie and Nicole, for joining us today. This is our first official webinar. And of course, there are going to be more. There's more series and more topic preparing already for talent acquisitions going to be next, as well as coaching the dark side. I love, I can't wait for that topic, particularly dive into the dark side coaching. Okay. And thank you, Nicole and Anne Marie. And thank you everyone for being here. And particularly, last but not least, thank you, Jip, my sister and my partner, who arranged all this. And without her, this session cannot happen. So thank you everyone. ค่ะ